When she said that, her hand was still on my chest. I felt like she could feel my heart pounding through my shirt. Outside the bar window, the red and blue flashing siren lights continued. As if I had just ruined everything, she was staring at me. "You don't mind that I'm older?" The noise outside nearly drowned out Brooke's hushed voice as she inquired. I had been joking with my coworkers at O'Malley's, a little bar off South Congress in Austin, only 15 minutes prior. It was where we usually went on Friday nights after a demanding work week. Warm beer, loud music, and inexpensive wings. On Monday mornings, it was the location where everyone made jokes and moaned about customers. The evening was not intended to be dramatic. Drinks, trash talk, and me acting like I didn't look at my boss, Brooke Carter, for too long were the planned activities. She was seated in her typical location close to the wall, at the other end of the large corner table, where she could observe everyone. Always being aware of what was going on in the room was a Brooke trait. She had a half-finished whiskey in front of her, her gray blazer sleeves rolled up, and her dark hair pulled back into a low ponytail. Recently divorced, 36, and seemingly 10 times more put together than anyone else in our company. Even wearing my loafers and button-down, I felt like a child at 27. A joke regarding office romances had been made. I can't even recall who it was. Perhaps Tyler from sales, who is already half drunk, is grinning foolishly while discussing HR policies. I chuckled along with everyone else, and then I felt an elbow nudge. Tyler yelled, "Ethan, tell us again how you're going to marry Brooke one day." Loud enough for half the bar to hear. Everyone pivoted. My cheeks started to get heated. I made that dumb joke in the break room months ago when I thought Tyler was the only one listening. I forced a laugh and responded, Yeah. I promised him that I would ask her out sometime, merely to silence him. The wrong thing to do. It was much too noisy. Since Brooke overheard. For a brief moment, our eyes met across the table as she looked up from her drink. She gave me that half-amused, half-annoyed expression when a junior agent said something stupid during a meeting, and I saw the slight lift of her eyebrow. As if we were all in high school again, the gathering burst into laughing and hoots. Someone yelled, "Be careful, Ethan, she's your boss." Tyler gave me a shoulder clap and remarked, "Man has guts." I made an effort to hide the tightness in my chest. I glanced at her once more. She didn't appear angry. She also didn't appear flattered. Simply put, unreadable. Then everything changed. The music was interrupted by the sound of tires squealing outside. Everyone flinched when they heard a thunderous clang of metal on metal. The windows shook. In order to look, many twisted in their chairs. Someone swore. Did that happen outside? At our table, someone said. I was on my feet already. I have no idea why. Perhaps instinct. I pushed past a few individuals and made my way to the front. Behind me, I heard Brooke say, "Wait, Ethan," but she followed. The sultry Texas night smacked me hard as soon as I went outside. The lamps brought the street scene into sharp focus. At the junction, one car crashed with the other. The front of a little silver automobile was crushed in. The airbags blew. I couldn't determine if it was smoke or steam rolling up from under the hood. Then I noticed the silver car's license plate. I murmured, my voice suddenly dry, "Brooke, is that not?" Before I could finish, she shoved by me and sprinted in the direction of the automobile. It was her vehicle. My stomach turned over as I jogged after her. There was no one in the driver's seat. Deflated, the airbag hung. Something about the other car running the light was being swore into his phone by a man in a pickup truck. On the sidewalk, people were congregating. 911 had already been contacted. "Where are the keys?" With a snap, Brooke pulled open the passenger door, as if she could will someone into the seat. She had trembling hands. "This is where I left my automobile." "I am certain that I did. I left my car here, Ethan. Remember how you took an Uber from your lawyers?" I spoke hastily while attempting to sound composed. "You informed us. After. You didn't want to drive." Following her encounter with her ex-husband and his lawyer. She had big, unfocused eyes. Her shoulders lowered an inch as I watched the revelation sink in, as if some of the anxiety had been drained away but something else had remained. She took a step back, gazing at the twisted metal as if it had attempted to kill her all along. In the distance, the sirens became louder. "Are you all right?" Quietly, I asked. She gave a non-convincing nod. I just thought for a moment. Breathing heavily, she put a hand to her chest. Everything seems to be working against me these days. At that moment, I wanted to grab her, put an arm around her, and yank her slightly away from the debris, the throng, and the flashing cameras of those who were pointlessly recording everything. Rather, I simply stood next to her, my arm brushing hers. "Here you are," I said. "You're all right. That's what counts." She gave me a quick look. The gleam in her eyes was captured by the streetlight. I have witnessed her disregard contract restrictions and handle irate clients' phone calls as if they were nothing. She had never looked so shaken to me. We remained there till the ambulance came and the police began to wave us away and take statements. Our office worker emerged first, followed by a couple more. O'Malley's manager inquired about everyone's well-being. The pickup's driver insisted that he hadn't noticed the vehicle appear out of nowhere. It felt like we had to deal with our mess, even though it wasn't, since it had nearly been her. Because if she hadn't called that Uber, if she had chosen to drive, or if her meeting had gone longer than expected, when I was back in the bar, everything was different. The volume of the song was too high. The air was too dense. The jokes had subsided, but people returned to their beverages. Tyler attempted to initiate a new round, but even he kept looking at Brooke as if he was at a loss for words. Away from the others, she sat at a tiny booth by the window and gazed out at the flashing lights. I went over and got 2 waters from the bar. I placed one down in front of her and said, "Here." She smiled half-tiredly at me. "Thank you." Opposite her, I slid into the booth. We sat there in peace for a while, the bar's commotion reducing to a low roar all around us. "I apologize for what Tyler said," I said. And what I said, the whole "one day, I'll ask you out" thing. It was a joke. A dumb one. She glanced at me from the window. "You really give a damn about what they think?" "Yes," I said. Then, a beat later, "And no, I simply don't want you to believe that I'm a naive person who disregards boundaries." She looked at me for a moment as if she was considering something. "What if it didn't bother me as much as you think?" she asked gently. My heart faltered. "What?" Her fingertips traced the rim of her glass as she leaned forward slightly. "Ethan, you make jokes like that, and they all chuckle. But when you say it, you never give me a glance. You search everywhere else." I took a swallow. "Because if I did, it would be too obvious." She seemed to be struggling not to smile as her lips quirked. "I'm 9 years older than you. Your paychecks are signed by me. I recently ended a divorce that felt like it took 10 years out of my life. Do you truly believe that to be insignificant?" I felt my pulse in my throat as I inhaled. At last, the sirens outside had subsided. Once more, the bar was just a bar. However, the world seemed to have shrunk to the few inches separating us in this tiny booth. "I believe," I murmured softly, "that I don't give a damn about your age. I care that my entire day improves when you enter the workplace. The fact that you're the only person who truly pays attention when I speak matters to me. I care that I felt like I was out of breath when I believed the wreck to be your vehicle." She remained silent for a long moment. Then she stretched across the table, touching my heart with her fingertips as they touched my shirt. I was surprised by the contact, which made all of my nerves tense. "That beats so quickly," she muttered. "I don't know if it has to do with me or the accident." I exclaimed, before I could stop myself, "It's you." My eyes met hers. The bar's commotion vanished entirely. She was the only one with the evidence of all I had just confessed, her hand resting on my chest. She then posed the question. She said, "Doesn't it bother you that I'm older?" I fixed my gaze on her, my boss, my closest friend, and my greatest danger. And I understood that my response may make all the difference. I said, "I'm not bothered by it." Before I could overthink it, the words were out. They were easy, sincere. As if to confirm it, my heart pounded against her hand. She seemed to be looking for the humor as her eyes scanned my face. "I'm your boss, Ethan," she stated in a gentle yet authoritative tone. "I understand. I had a divorce. You're not even 30 years old. I am also aware of that." Slowly, as if letting go were painful, she withdrew her hand. I experienced a pain in my chest from the loss of her touch. "This is not amusing," she remarked. "It's not a cute office gossip. It's what I do. It's your responsibility. It's my standing. Are you aware of that?" "Yes," I said. "I do. However, I am also aware that 5 minutes ago, I believed you were dead in that car." I never told her, was all I could think. Not at all. Leaning back in the booth, she gazed at me as if attempting to determine whether I was dangerous or simply foolish. "You believe that age is the issue," she remarked. "It's not the sole issue. I answered, I didn't say it was. I just stated that I'm not bothered by it. She made a small line with her lips. I briefly believed she was going to shut everything down. Tell a joke. Tell me to forget it. Return to being Ethan in marketing, the man who stayed late to bring her coffee and made an effort to win her over with tidy decks and attention-grabbing taglines. Rather, she suggested that we leave. I don't want to see them tow my automobile, and they're going to remove that scene soon. Yeah, I muttered. I'll lead you outside. We left the booth and made our way through the throng. I sensed that our coworkers were watching us because of the brief lull in talk as we went by. My skin pricked. Tyler looked at me like, what? What took place? I paid him no attention. The night air outside was humid and heavy. With an officer guiding traffic past the accident, the street was now partially blocked off. The car that had nearly been hers was already being backed up by a tow truck. Brooke paused. Her jaw clenched as she stared. Uber? I inquired. She gave a nod. Indeed. My spare keys are in my lawyer's office. I'll take care of that tomorrow. Want me to accompany you on your ride? Before I could change it, I made the offer. Just to make sure you make it safely home. She gazed at me, her eyes weary and the corners of her mascara a little smudged. She appeared more like someone who had experienced a very trying day than my supervisor. She said, You don't have to do that. I understand, I replied. May I ask if you would like me to? For a beat that seemed longer than it actually was, she kept her eyes on mine. Then she let out a sigh. Yeah, she muttered. All right. After a few minutes, the older black Camry Uber arrived. We moved to the rear seat. After giving the driver her address, which is a condominium complex next to Zilker Park, she stopped talking and just stared out the window. Lights streaked through the city. Neon signs, food trucks, and storefronts. Rather than the streets, I looked at her mirror. She had stiff shoulders. Her knuckles were white from holding her hands together so tightly in her lap. Finally, trying to break the oppressive stillness, I murmured, Rough day. She laughed a bit, without humor. That's what you could say. My employee decides that now is the night to admit that he has been half in love with me after we went through divorce mediation. My ex-husband tried to cut my bonus in half, and he nearly thought my car had been wrapped around a light pole. I mumbled. I didn't say halfway. Despite everything, a small smile pulled at her lips as she gently turned her head. You truly have no idea when to shut up, do you? Not until I at last began speaking the truth, I remarked. No. Her eyes remained gentle, but her grin dimmed. She let out a breath and turned back to the window. After a time, she continued. You know why I asked about my age? I said, because you believe it makes a difference. She retorted, because my ex traded me in for someone younger. 24. Work as an intern for his company. Still finds student loans kind of cute, despite being blonde and tanned. I felt a burning sensation in my chest. Did he cheat? Yes, she replied bluntly. He was constantly too tired or too stressed from work around me. He suddenly found all this vitality with her. She gave a headshake. Are you aware of the effects it has on your brain? To your assurance? To listen to a lawyer say, well, she's closer to his stage of life now, while seated in a room? In my lap, my hands clenched into fists. He is a moron. She remarked, he's really successful. But regrettably, that is not the same thing. I remarked, that doesn't make him any less of an idiot. She shot me a sidelong glance. You know that you frequently get upset on my behalf. I muttered, only when you don't get what you deserve. She seemed to be swallowing something hard as her throat moved. A country song about heartbreak was playing on the radio when the driver switched it on. It was so spot on that I nearly burst out laughing. Look, she continued after a time. There's still the job even if we ignore the age thing, the divorce thing, and the ex who is going to make my life hell. I understood her meaning. HR regulations, imbalance of power, office rumors. Tyler was one of those people who valued stories over respect. I said, I'm not asking you to make any decisions tonight. I'm not asking you to go on a covert, private date with me. I simply ask that you not act as though nothing is here, since there is, and I believe you are aware of it. We turned into her complex, and the automobile halted. She took a while to reply. The car parked close to her building, a tall masonry building with gentle walkway lighting. At last, she gave me a serious look. You are correct, she remarked. This is something. My heart pounded. She went on. But there are also things you don't know yet. And they will also hit you if we do something about this. Not just me. Like what? I inquired. She hesitated before reaching for the door handle. On Monday morning, stop by my office. 9 o'clock, she stated, prior to the team meeting. Then, I'll explain. Brooke, with a little shake of her head, she interrupted me. Ethan, good night. She exited the vehicle. She walked up the path, swiped her key fob, and vanished inside, as I watched. She vanished as the door closed. In the rearview mirror, the driver gave me a quick look. Dude, do you want me to drive you back to the bar? My thoughts were racing as I continued to gaze at the edifice. No, I replied. Just bring me home. I was thinking about that ride all weekend. That contact. You still don't know all about that line. My mind attempted to fill in the gaps. Perhaps it had to do with the divorce. Perhaps her former partner was connected to our business in some way. Perhaps HR was already keeping a careful eye on her. I had tried every worst-case scenario by Monday morning and had still arrived at the same conclusion. I was outside her workplace at 9 in the morning. The typical start-of-week energy was in the air on the floor. Coffee cup holders, whirring printers, and a person having a quiet phone argument with a client who didn't understand the value of branding. I went to knock on her door. Enter, she beckoned. I entered. Wearing black pants and a navy blouse, she was at her desk with flawless makeup and straight hair. She had returned to her professional self. The bartender was a dream come true. She said, "Close the door." My stomach grew constricted. I sat in the chair across from her desk, as she requested. An email was open on her screen. From my seat, I could see the subject line. About the O'Malley S. incident. Informal HR check-in. My heartbeat quickened. To make it easier for me to see, she gently rotated the screen. Her eyes were keen, but her face was composed. This is the first thing you don't know yet, Ethan, she continued, folding her hands on the desk. She nodded toward the glass wall behind me and continued. And there's more. I pivoted. A man in a fine suit was standing outside her office, chatting with our CEO. Tall, self-assured, and a tad too attractive. Even though I didn't know him, I could tell by the way Brooke's jaw tensed. That's Derek, she said in a very restrained voice. My former spouse. And he's our newest big client as of this morning, she added. Before I could comprehend what she had just said, the door opened. Our CEO, Mark, stepped in and said, "Brooke, got a minute?" The man in the smart suit appeared behind him. Derek, the former spouse. The man who had unintentionally nearly killed her nevertheless managed to look as though he slept for 8 hours and woke up each day with confidence. He had dark hair that was graying at the temples in that obnoxious, eminent manner some guys manage, and he was taller than me, maybe 6'1". His suit had a high-end appearance. He appeared to have practiced his smile. Brooke's entire body shifted. With her shoulders back and her face composed, she sat up straight in her chair. I never would have guessed if I hadn't seen her in the bar booth 2 nights prior. Obviously, she replied. Enter now. Mark gave me a smile. All right, Ethan, you're here already. This is effective. Derek's gaze shifted from Brooke to me and back again. He remarked, I didn't realize you had someone with you already. He had a lovely voice. Too silky. I'm Ethan. Mark introduced himself. One of our finest in terms of branding. Derek, I believe he would be an excellent campaign leader. Campaign. My gut pounded as I heard the word. This was not a random account, therefore. It was a big one. The CEO was personally guiding Derek around the floor because it was large enough. At last, Derek gave me the attention I deserved. Ethan, he said again. Good to meet you. He extended his hand. I got up and gave it a shake. He had a tight, almost painful grasp. He maintained his gaze. You too, I replied. Derek turned back to Brooke and remarked, So, my company gets the best, huh? As if this were a game he was already winning. Is that what this signifies? Brooke's tone remained steady. It implies that we assign the most capable individuals to critical tasks. This is how it goes, you know. He said, Oh, I do. Excellent. Something harsh and private, something icy, flickered between them for a moment. I had the impression that I had entered the midst of a discussion that had begun years ago and had never truly concluded. Mark gave a single hand clap. Fantastic. I'll let the 3 of you discuss logistics. I told Derek that we would go over some preliminary strategy ideas before his hard halt at 10. Obviously, Brooke replied. The atmosphere in the office changed once Mark left. He carried the good vibes with him. What remained was tense. Without asking, Derek sank into the chair beside me. So, how long have you been working under Brooke? He asked, turning back to face me. My jaw tightened at the way he stressed the word under. For 2 years, I said. 2 years, he said again. Very impressive. She was always able to spot talent. Half of the partners at my previous business were trained by her. He looked at her. Did you not? Brooke had a narrow smile. Derek, we're here to discuss your launch, not my. Resume. He laughed. Brooke, same old Brooke. Let's get right to the point. All right. We discussed the rebranding of his business. We discussed audience segments, budgets, and schedules. It was typical on the surface. However, each time I spoke, I sensed Derek considering what I was saying, as if he were attempting to understand my meaning for her beyond just my work title. He once leaned back and remarked, You guys go to O'Malley's on Fridays after work, right? Are you still doing that? I felt sick to my stomach. For a half second, Brooke's pen froze above her notebook before she resumed writing. On occasion, she remarked. Funny, he remarked nonchalantly. On Saturday, I ran into one of your coworkers at my gym. I caught his attention. He told stories. I remained motionless. How about? He shrugged lightly and remarked. Oh, you know how people talk when they drink. Office rumors. Who is having sex with whom? Who would want to? He glanced at Brooke. Who makes jokes about proposing to their boss? My muscles tensed. Tyler. Tyler had to be the fool. Once, Brooke's jaw flexed. At my team events, we maintain a professional demeanor, she stated calmly. Anyone who said something else was acting inappropriately. Derek grinned broadly. Calm down. HR is not me. Merely striking up a discussion. However, HR was already on her screen in the email. We concluded the meeting. They established dates. Decks for follow-up were promised. Derek buttoned his jacket and stood up. He remarked, It's nice to work with you again, Brooke. Even though we are now on different sides of the table. Same, she answered in a bland tone. He turned to face me and said, And Ethan, I'm sure we'll be seeing each other a lot in the coming months. His grin grew angular. I enjoy getting really involved with my brand. I lied and said, looking forward to it. As soon as the door closed behind him, Brooke let out a breath she had been holding the entire time. It felt too small to sit, so I remained upright. That email from Saturday, I remarked softly as I nodded at her computer. HR. She gave her temples a rub. Someone informally mentioned that a direct report and I were the subject of jokes at the bar. Just checking in to make sure nothing inappropriate is happening, HR said. Inappropriate, I said again, my throat feeling parched. Her eyes were weary as she gazed up at me. Additionally, my ex-husband, who is a large client and is already looking for signs of confidence issues, loves leverage more than oxygen. This is what I mean, Ethan, when I say that this isn't simply some adorable age gap thing. A wave of guilt swept over me. I am to blame for this. I ought not to have. Sharper than ever, she said. Stop. No one was cheated on by you. My divorce wasn't brought on by you. Once, your inebriated coworker fabricated a story out of a stupid joke you made. They are not interchangeable. I answered. It still put you in the crosshairs. I should explain that it was nothing to HR, that nothing separates us. That I was simply, arching a brow, she asked, joking? Do you want to tell them that? There hung the question. I took a swallow. What am I supposed to say? She was silent for a moment. She then pushed her chair back and got up, facing me directly as she walked around the desk. I was able to make out the thin line of stress at the corner of her mouth. I was close enough to recall the sensation of her hand on my chest. I need you to be honest with HR, she replied softly. I've never gotten close to you. That I've never made an inappropriate request of you. That you've never felt in danger because of me. For my job, that is the portion that counts. I gave a nod. I am capable of doing that. With an even lower voice, she said, and the other part, the one where you told me you care. Please don't bring that into the workplace until I decide how much danger I can take. My chest hurt. You're implying that there is a risk. For a moment, she averted her gaze as if the act of making eye contact were hazardous. Ethan, you're not a moron. You are aware that there is. Between us, there was a thick, electrified silence. At last, she stated, I have to meet with HR at 3. They'll most likely give you a call later today as well. Don't tell me lies. Just be explicit. How about Derek? I inquired. He has a suspicion already. He will exert pressure. Her lips clenched. His favorite thing is that. Pressing. Observing the points at which people break, she gave me another look. I'm not easily broken. He enjoys trying, though. I said, I won't allow him to use me to harm you. A slight softening of her eyes occurred. She remarked, you can't stop him from doing what he does. How much you let him see, however, is up to you. My thoughts was racing when I left her office. At 11, the HR email arrived in my inbox. Hello, Ethan. Would you be able to drop by conference room B around 1:30 today for a brief, casual conversation? Nothing major, just resolving a little issue. Jenna, human resources, nothing serious, has never seemed more accurate. The conference room B was too bright and too small. With a tight smile on her face and her laptop open, Jenna from HR sat across from me. Another man, a legal representative I had only met at all-hands gatherings, was also present. Jenna stated, all we want is for you to explain what transpired on Friday night. Some members of your team visited O'Malley's? Yes, I said. As we typically do. She added, and there was a joke about asking Brooke out? I spoke steadily. Indeed. Tyler mentioned a joke I had told months prior. To silence him, I replied something like, I'll ask her out someday. It was stupid. People chuckled. That was it. Did Brooke appear uneasy? Inquired the lawyer. No, I replied. If anything, she appeared irritated at Tyler's loudness. She didn't support it. I wasn't flirted with by her. She did nothing improper. Jenna inquired, have you ever been romantically involved with Brooke? Even though I was expecting this inquiry, it nevertheless came as a shock. No, I replied. We haven't. She typed something. Have you ever experienced any kind of pressure from her? After hours expectations, texts, and comments that seemed personal? No, I said again. She is the most polished individual in this building. I should have been more careful with my words, if anything. They glanced at each other. Off the record, do you feel anything for her? Jenna asked in a slightly gentler tone. My heart thumped. I recalled Brooke's caution. Don't tell me lies. Just be explicit. I imagined Derek smelling blood in his immaculate suit. I considered my bank account, my job, and my rent. I admire her, I murmured slowly. I think she's amazing. She is an excellent manager. Anything else isn't her concern, it's mine. Without giving them a weapon, it was the closest thing I could come to the truth. The meeting came to an end. They expressed gratitude to me, claimed that these things were merely due diligence, and that it probably wouldn't go anywhere. I checked my phone as I made my way back to my desk. Brooke sent one new SMS. Brooke, have they yet to speak with you? Me, I agree. I kept it tidy. A pause occurred. The trio of dots emerged, vanished, resurfaced. Brooke, I'm grateful. One more pause. Brooke, would you be able to visit me this evening? 7:30. I don't want to text someone about this. I gasped. Me, I agree. I'll be present. I acted like I was working all afternoon. Without seeing them, I shifted objects around on screens and opened decks. My heart leaped each time my email pinged. My mouth tightened each time Derek's name appeared in a thread. My palms were sweating on the steering wheel as I pulled into the visitor spot of her condo complex at 7:20. The houses turned yellow as the sun sank. On Monday nights, people went about their daily lives as usual, carrying groceries and walking their dogs. I didn't feel like my life was regular. With my heart racing, I stepped up the road to her unit and knocked. Almost immediately, the door opened. Standing barefoot with her hair down, Brooke wore trousers and a soft-looking black t-shirt. No blazer, no armor. It tilted everything inside me to see her like that, in her own place. Without making any small conversation, she stated, "We need to decide something." "What?" I inquired. With a gentle click, she shut the door behind me after stepping back to let me enter. She looked directly into my eyes and asked, "Are we going to continue to act as though this is only an HR issue or acknowledge that it's a problem for our hearts as well?" Her remarks lingered in the air between us as I stood in her foyer for a while, the door closing behind me. An issue for our hearts. Trying to calm myself, I muttered. I didn't know hearts were allowed to file HR complaints. She looked at me with a mixture of softer and frustrated expressions. "Ethan," I said, "I mean it. I'll comply if this is merely a work-related matter. I'll act appropriately. All of my late-night thoughts and dumb jokes about you will be forgotten. I'll do it if that's what you require." She clenched her fingers on the kitchen counter's edge. "Is it possible for you to forget?" I took a swallow. No. It sounded as though she had been holding her breath all day when she released it. Indeed, I don't. She moved by me and took a seat on the arm of the couch in the living room. With a stack of books on the coffee table, a blanket draped over the back of the couch, and a framed painting of Austin's skyline above the TV, the space was neat but lived in. It was warm underneath, yet controlled, just like her. After a few moments of standing, I approached, but not too closely. I had no faith in myself. How went the HR meeting? I inquired. She smiled without humor. Oh, the typical. They inquired as to whether I had ever dated a worker. If I had ever said something that would have been interpreted as flirty. If I had consumed any alcohol prior to going to the bar. She gave a headshake. They enjoy checking things off lists. What were your words to them? I assured them that I have never had a falling out with any of my subordinates. That I keep my personal life and work apart. She hesitated. Jenna then inquired as to if that was still the case. My chest constricted. What were you saying? Yeah, she answered. Because it is at the moment. This is between us, whatever it is. However, no association exists. Not quite yet. The yet dangled there, frail and heavy. What are they doing then? I inquired. She used air quotes when she stated, they're documenting the concern. In particular, since my ex is a customer and could use anything against the firm, it is highly advised that I maintain clear professional boundaries with my direct reports. I mumbled. Derek came up, of course. He did, of course, she said. He always manages to get to the heart of things. Uncertain of when I had made the decision to move, I took a step closer. I questioned, what about him being a client? Does that alter our relationship in any way? There was no amusement in her quiet laughter. With Derek, everything is a power struggle. He had an affair with a younger person. I felt outdated, abandoned, and replaced by him. He now enters my office and says, oh, upon seeing you, you're young, intelligent, and a member of my team. I am familiar with this tale. She is acting as I did. I said, I'm not him. I understand, she blurted out. That's the one certainty I have. You're not him. To be honest, that is the most terrifying aspect. I scowled. How is that the scary part? She looked directly at me as she stated, because if you were just a distraction, if this was just me chasing something young and easy to prove I'm still wanted, I could shut it down. For months, I have been closing things down. However, she gave a headshake. You pay attention. You are concerned. I thought my life, my car, was slung around a pole, and you appear when I'm gasping for air on a sidewalk. I feel noticed by you. It's far more difficult to leave that. It was as though my heart was attempting to escape my chest. You're not utilizing me to exact revenge on him? Quietly, I asked. She flinched. Do you believe that? No, I blurted out. That's what I fear for you. That you're still thinking about him. Because everything must still revolve on his actions. She lowered her gaze to her hands. It's difficult to think that somebody would genuinely desire me. It's not only the me who shows up to pitch or the me who signs checks. Only me. With the baggage, the scars from the divorce, and the additional years. In order for us to be eye level, I shifted to the coffee table across from her. I answered, Brooke, I am aware of the divorce. I am aware of your age. I am aware that your ex has a flawless grin and is a walking red flag. That doesn't lessen my desire for you. I want to show you that you are more than what he left behind because of this. Her eyes were sparkling. Now you say that. You are 27 years old. You haven't seen how your face has changed over time in the mirror. You haven't watched someone calculate your value in terms of money and property at a lawyer's office. I extended my hand and allowed her to slowly back away. I held her hand while she didn't. I whispered, I've seen you enter conference rooms and take ownership of them. I've seen you stand up for members of our team when clients tried to bully them. I've seen you stay up late correcting someone else's error so they wouldn't get scolded in the morning. And on Friday night, I saw you breathe through your car without it collapsing, even though it looked like it was wrapped around a pole. When I look at you, I see that. She clenched her fingers around mine. For you, this goes beyond age, I said. It has to do with control. You lost it to Derek. HR prods it. Our company's rules push on it. You feel as though you're endangering your job, which is still under your hands, if we do this. Yes, she said in a whisper. Exactly, I answered. Then let me be the one to move. She blinked. What? I answered. I can request a transfer. To a different group. An additional department. Hell, if I have to, another company. Even though I enjoy what I do, I could do it somewhere else. You earned your current position via hard work. You will not be knocked down because of me. Her gaze expanded. You'd leave? If it meant we could try this without you watching over your shoulder all the time. I said, indeed, I would. She appeared as though the thought had never even crossed her mind. That is a lot, she remarked. Your career is that. I said, careers change. Choose the change instead of letting fear do it for me. Silence encircled us once more. The air felt heavy, but not suffocating. It felt more like we were on the brink of something. What if we try all of that, and it doesn't work? She whispered softly. What if you wake up one day and realize I was just some messy post-divorce face? Or do you hate me for forcing you to go? I said, then we'll handle it like grown-ups who made a decision. Not like those who pretended they didn't feel what they felt for years. She laughed unsteadily. You make it seem so easy. It's not easy, I remarked. It's frightful. I'm not acting like it isn't. However, I understand how it felt to believe you were no longer there. And that felt worse than any danger I could think of. She gave me a prolonged gaze. Glanced closely. She seemed to be attempting to commit my face to memory, or perhaps to confirm that I meant every word. Finally, she squeezed my hand and stood up, pulling me with her. All right, she said. My heart faltered. All right, what? All right, she said again, a tiny smile piercing the terror. Request a transfer. First, an internal move. Apart from my team. A distinct reporting system. We'll do it correctly. No secrets. Don't lie. We won't be hiding if this blows out. We'll be standing tall. Relief and terror moved through me at the same time. Until then, too? My voice was harsh as I asked. Until then, she added, taking a step closer. We don't give Derek any more free entertainment than he already has. We keep things professional in the office, and we tell HR the truth. Now her face was just centimeters away from mine. The gold sparkles in her eyes were visible to me, and away from the office. I muttered. She paused long enough to cause pain in my chest. Then she reached up and put her hand on my jaw, grazing the corner of my mouth with her thumb. We start figuring out what this is outside the office, she remarked quietly, carefully and slowly. On purpose. I leaned closer. She met me halfway. It wasn't a movie-perfect kiss. Her nose brushed mine. There was a slight clack of our teeth. We both chuckled against each other's lips for a little moment. Then it became steady, substantial, and warm. She moved her hands to the nape of my neck. Feeling her breath against me, I put my arms around her waist and drew her in. There was no crowd watching, no colleagues, no former spouse, no HR paperwork. In a quiet Austin condo, it was just the two of us, finally revealing what had been brewing for months. You still sure my age doesn't bother you? She said as we eventually retreated, foreheads resting together. I smiled, my chest full. I only met the version of you who is still standing after all of that because you are older. Why should I be bothered about that? She exhaled a breath that was half sob, half giggle. You say things like that and expect me not to fall for you. I said, I'm counting on it. The weeks that followed weren't easy. Derek exerted pressure. He tested boundaries by making infrequent remarks during meetings. HR sent just checking in emails as a follow-up. I waited for the paperwork to go through the system after submitting an application for an internal transfer to a different division, lateral motion, same pay, new management. At work, we avoided each other. We exercised caution. Expert. There were moments when the entire universe narrowed to that one glance when I caught hers across a conference room. However, we managed to hold the line. I received a confirmation email in my mailbox the night my transfer was fully completed. With my heart racing, I gazed at the email before reaching for my phone. Me. I no longer work under you. She responded almost immediately. Brooke, well done. In any case, I was beginning to like having you at my side. We didn't visit O'Malley's on Friday. Instead, we took a truck out to Zilker, had some tacos, and laid on a blanket while the sun set and the city lights came on. No one from work. Not HR. Derek, no? Her head resting on my shoulder, my hand intertwined with hers, and her leaning into my side. I muttered, I once joked that I'd ask you out someday. With a smile, she touched my arm. You did. I'm serious now, I declared. Would you like to go out with me, Brooke Carter? Formally. Not a rumor. Don't make jokes about the bar. Just us. Her eyes gleamed in the last of the light as she raised her head. Yes, she replied. Yes, officially. After giving my hand a gentle squeeze, she said, "And no, it doesn't bother me that you're younger." I chuckled. "All right, because I'm still not bothered by your advanced age." For the first time in a long time, the future didn't feel like something that would happen to me when she gave me another calm, steady kiss. It felt like something we were choosing. Together.
If you felt good in this story, like, subscribe, and join me in the next one. Thank you.